Hey guys, Carl from Purple Plays. This week I'm taking a look at Cartographers, a roll and write game in the role-player universe from Thunderworks Games, designed by Jordi Adam. In addition to my normal playthrough this week, this is going to be a bit like the Tiny Towns playthrough from before, in that if you're interested you can join along and play with me. If you've got a copy of the game, feel free to take out one of your player sheets, and if you don't have a copy of the game, follow the link below to print out a copy from the Thunderworks website. With that being said, let's take a look at how the game is played. Join me for my playthrough, and I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think of the game.
Cartographer is a flip and write game where players take on the role of cartographers, working to complete their map, scoring the most points to become the greatest cartographer in the land. This game is played out over a series of 4 rounds, or seasons, with each season offering unique scoring goals. To begin setup for the game, each player receives one player map. And as a group, the players decide whether they will play with the standard map or this map on the other side that has this giant rift or chasm in the center of the map. In either case, the game plays out exactly the same way, except here nothing can be built where this chasm is, but this chasm also counts as filled-in squares for scoring purposes. For this game, I will be using the standard map. As I mentioned before, the game plays out over 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Each season is going to have a different length timer. I will explain this timer in a minute, but this timer dictates how many cards are drawn during that round. So you'll see as we progress through the game, we're getting less and less cards each round. In addition, each season scores based on different scoring cards. I will explain the scoring cards next. But you can see here that we start with the first 2 scoring cards, and then we move to the second and third scoring card, third and fourth scoring cards, and then finally fourth and first scoring cards. So every round we're scoring 2 different scoring cards, and those goals are overlapping from round to round. And each of those goals will be scored twice before the end of the game. So these cards will be placed in that order off to the side. The next thing we need to do is draw those scoring goals. There are 4 types of scoring goals. And each of those scoring goals comes with 4 cards. This scoring goal are all goals that are scoring based on positioning or filling in certain areas of the board. So we're going to start by shuffling those, and we will choose one of those goals. So for my game today, I will be using the cauldrons. The cauldron says we're going to gain a star for each empty space that's surrounded on all 4 sides by filled spaces or the edge of the board. So we're looking to build these sort of pockets of single empty squares to score 1 point for each. This I'm going to put here because I'm going to randomize the order of these scoring cards once we've chosen all 4 of them. The next scoring goal is a scoring goal that's going to score based on red squares or village squares. So again, we'll shuffle those up, and we'll choose one of those. Our village goal this game is Great City. Great City says we earn 1 reputation star for each village space in the largest cluster of village spaces that is not adjacent to a mountain space. So we have to find first our biggest cluster of villages, and then we need to make sure it's not adjacent to a mountain. And if that's true, then we count 1 point for each of the squares in there. Note this is the largest cluster. So even if we only have 1 cluster, we score. And we don't need to worry about creating other small clusters because we're only scoring the largest cluster. The next scoring goal is a scoring goal that's going to score based on the green or forest squares. So again, we'll shuffle those up. And we'll choose one at random. So today I'll be playing with the Stoneside Forest. The Stoneside Forest says we earn 3 reputation stars for each mountain space that is connected to another mountain space by a cluster of forest spaces. So I'm trying to connect between mountain to mountain using a chain of forest spaces, but we're scoring per mountain space, not per connection. So even if I connect this mountain space to 2 different mountains, it only scores once. And finally, the last scoring goal card scores based on yellow or blue, which is farm and water spaces. So again, we'll shuffle those up and I'll choose one of those. So my fourth goal card for today is the Golden Granary, which says we earn 1 reputation star for each water space that's adjacent to a ruin, and also we earn 3 reputation stars for each farm space that's on a ruin space. So again, we're trying to get farm on top of ruins, and we're trying to get water next to ruins. Ruins are important because I'll show you in a minute, but there are certain cards that force you to build on ruins, and if you don't have any open ruins, then you have to just place 1 square anywhere, and that kind of hurts your scoring. So we need to be careful not to cover those too early, but I'll explain that later as we get into the game. So now that we've got our 4 goal cards, I'm going to shuffle them up, mix them up a bit, and we'll lay them out into 4 areas, A, B, C, and D. So we'll start with Great City, that's card A. The Golden Granary is card B. The Cauldrons is card C, and the Stoneside Forest as card D. So before I continue with the setup, I should begin to explain basically the overall structure of this game and how it works. I've mentioned that we're playing out over 4 rounds or seasons, and each season we're going to be drawing from these cards. And these cards are the cards that tell me what we're going to be drawing on our map. So every turn in a round, I'm going to turn over one of these cards. And you're going to see a couple different types of cards, so I'll go through some of these with you. The first card you'll see, for example, like this farmland, is going to have a single type of land. But it's going to offer you 2 different shapes. You need to choose one of those 2 shapes to add to your board. If you choose the smaller of the 2 shapes, you also are awarded 1 coin, which you can mark off on your player mat here by filling in one of these coins. These coins will also score you 1 point per coin at the end of each round, which means if you get those coins early in the game, you'll score them 3 or 4 times before the end of the game. So it's not a bad idea to focus on those early in the game. So again, on cards like this, we can choose to either draw the small shape and get a coin, or draw the large shape. But we must use the type of land that's shown on the card. Another type of card that we will see, like this fishing village, comes in 2 different colors. So you can choose either, in this case, village or water, but you must draw this shape. I mentioned before that we're going to see temples. Temple cards look like this, and temple cards are not telling you what to draw, but instead, after you draw a temple card, you will draw another card like this. And what this means is, I must draw this shape with either this or this land type, and it must overlap one of the temple spaces on my map. So you'll see here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 temple spaces on my map. So I would need to cover one of those with this shape. If I cannot cover, meaning I already have a temple if all of my temples are already covered, or there's not enough space on a temple to fit that shape, I must instead draw 1 square of any type of land anywhere on my map. Which means it's helpful because it gives me any land type, but I'm only drawing 1 square, and 1 square is not going to give much fill-in towards my goals. The last type of card that we're going to see during the game are ambush cards. Ambush cards will be shuffled in 1 at a time per round. So each round we're adding 1 ambush card to the deck. When an ambush card comes out in our draw, it will be discarded. However, if the round ends before the ambush card comes up, that ambush card will remain in the deck, which means in the next round we're going to have 2 or 3 or even 4 if we don't see them. I don't expect that 4 of them would be in there at one time because the likelihood of them not coming out that often is probably rare. But they will stack if they don't come out in a given round. So what do ambush cards do? Ambush cards are designed to sort of ruin your map and give you another challenge to take care of. If we were playing a multiplayer game, we would look at this picture here and look at the arrow direction. So in this case, the arrow is going counterclockwise. So in this case, what I would do is I would take my player mat and I would pass this player mat to my right, following that counterclockwise pattern. And the person to my right would then draw this shape anywhere on my map. Again, if that piece does not fit on my map, they would then instead draw one square anywhere on the map. However, today we're playing this solo game. And in the solo game, there's no one to pass our sheet to. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to look here. And we're going to see in this 4 square set, where is the colored square? Here you can see the bottom right is colored purple. So we're going to take our map and we're going to start in this bottom right square. And then we're going to follow this counterclockwise direction. And we're going to look for the first space that we can draw this exactly as drawn on the card. So I would start here and I would follow in this direction, looking at each space, looking for where can I fit that shape on my board. So that's how we'll be using these cards today. You'll see how that works as we get into the play. One thing I should mention that I haven't mentioned yet is that whenever we're drawing a shape on our board, for example, this straight line, the shape can always be rotated. So if you'd rather draw the shape this way or this way, you can choose which way to draw it. It's also important to note that the shapes can be flipped. So in the case of a shape like this T cross, it can be drawn this way, this way, this way, or this way. But in the case of something like this shape right here, in addition to this 1, 2, 3 with 2 on the right, we could also have 1, 2, 3 with 2 on the left, as if the shape had been flipped over. In a multiplayer game, you could also flip the ambush card shapes, or rotate the ambush card shapes to fit them onto the map. However, in the solo rules, when we're drawing these on our map, they cannot be flipped or rotated. They must be able to fit exactly as is. And in the case of the solo game, I mentioned in the multiplayer game, if it didn't fit, you would instead draw one square anywhere. In the case of the solo player game, if they cannot fit, then you are lucky and they do not have to be drawn on your map. So now that you have some idea of how to play the game, how does the game score? Well, we mentioned that in each round we're looking at 2 scoring conditions. In this round we're looking at A and B. So that means I'm looking to score this and this at the end of the round. In the next round we'll be scoring these 2 cards, the following round these 2 cards, and finally in the last round we'll be scoring these 2 cards. So if you're looking to score the current scoring conditions, you should be aiming based on what this card says. Remembering, however, that everything will be scored twice. So if I can't accomplish this early in the game, I know in the last round this will come back out. So again, this is scoring based on how many red squares I have in one cluster. It's likely at the beginning of the game I will not score a lot of points on this, but by the end of the game I could have grown a very large cluster of villages, in which case this will score a lot in the 4th round. So it's very important to remember you're not only scoring what you're looking at currently, but you should also be planning ahead to what's coming in the following rounds later on. In addition to these base game rules, today I'm also going to be introducing the Cartographers skill expansion. I mentioned before that when you draw the small shape on a card that gives you only one color option, you get a coin. In addition to that, anytime you've built in all 4 squares adjacent to a mountain, as is shown in this picture right here, you also unlock a coin. Again, filling in a coin down here at the bottom, and then scoring 1 point per coin at the end of each round. In the base game, that is the only use of the coins. The coins are simply a method to score extra points each round. However, using the skills expansion, which I'm going to use today, it gives you another opportunity. We're going to draw 3 of these skill cards. And each of these skill cards has a cost up here in the top right corner. During each round, you're allowed to spend this cost from your coins that you have in your supply and trigger one of the 3 skills. Again, each round you may only trigger one skill, and you do so by spending the cost in coins that's shown here in the upper right. So I'm going to go ahead and draw 3 of these skills for today's game, and then we'll discuss what they mean and what they do. So the first skill we'll be using is this, Search. This is actually a very nice one because it's free, but remember again, you can only use one skill per round. So Search says during the draw phase, you can draw an additional 1x1 square adjacent to the drawn shape. Fill it with the same terrain type. So basically this is just extending your shape by 1 block in any direction. It just needs to be touching the shape that you just drew on the map. The next card we'll be playing with is Acrobatics. Acrobatics says during the draw phase, if an ambush card is revealed, the shape drawn on your map sheet is a 2x1 shape instead of the depicted shape. This is really helpful because sometimes those monster shapes or those ambush shapes are going to be very strange shapes and they're going to be very annoying. I did forget to mention how those monster shapes score or actually hurt your score. So let's come back to those right now. I mentioned that when we draw an ambush on your card, you're going to draw this shape in the first location following this starting point and this movement pattern, where it fits on your card or on your scoring sheet. What I forgot to mention is, at the end of every round, any space that is adjacent to an ambush or a monster space that is not filled with anything at all is going to cost you -1 points at the end of that round. So if you have all of this surrounded by nothing or empty all around this shape, you're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 negative points at the end of the round. So you really need to make sure that you're starting to build around this to prevent those negative points. With the Acrobatics card that we just drew, if you use this, you're only drawing a 2x1 shape, which means you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces around it, rather than something like the 8 spaces I just showed you. So this is very helpful, but it does cost 2 coins, so it's very expensive as well. And finally, the last skill we will be using for this game is this one. Oh, this is the one I just showed you. Cure Wounds. It costs 1 coin, and it says during the draw phase, you can draw an additional 2x1 shape adjacent to a monster. Fill it with an available terrain type. Now this is also very helpful with those ambush cards. So if I choose to, after I've drawn the shape that I needed to, I can spend 1 coin to draw an additional 2x1 shape next to that monster, or any monster space that's already on my sheet. And I can fill it with an available terrain type, which means if I have a card that offers 2 terrain types, I could draw this shape in this terrain type and then spend 1 coin to draw a 2x1 shape in the other terrain type because it says an available terrain type, and in this case there are 2 types available. I hope that that was a helpful explanation for the game, but I hope also that things will become a little bit more clear as we go through the game. Again, if you do have a copy of this game, I would love to have you play along with me. But if you do not have a copy of this game, I've provided a link that you can see below this video where you can actually print out a player sheet. So using this video and a player sheet that you've printed out, you can try out the video as well. One last thing, I did remember, I need to talk about one more type of card. This type of card is 0 time, which I also forgot to talk about. So we will talk about time, but let's wait until we're playing because the time will make more sense as you see it play out. Riftlands lets you draw any of the different types of land, including a monster space if you'd like to. But you only get to draw 1 square. This is great for filling in holes or completing objectives that you're aiming for. Alright, so let's go ahead and complete our setup of the game by taking all of our cards and shuffling them. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of every round we're going to take one ambush card and we're going to put it somewhere in the deck, and then we're going to shuffle them all together. That ambush card will be discarded if it comes out, but again, if it does not, it will stay in the deck and remain there until it does come out later in a different round. So to begin our game of Cartographers, there's one more thing we're going to do to add a little flavor to the theme. At the top of your player sheet, you're going to write your name, the name of your kingdom, and if you'd like to, you can put a crest on the shield on your paper. In a multiplayer game, you would choose a title as well, but in the solo game, you will be given a title based on your score at the end of the game. So as I mentioned before, on every turn, we're going to draw a card. Oh, and we're going to start this game off right from the get-go with an ambush. We're being attacked by bugbears. So this is actually a good explanation because there's nothing on our sheet I can show you exactly how this works. We're going to start in the upper right corner. We're going to start in the upper right corner and we're going to be moving clockwise. And I need to find a spot to put that shape. This is a good one because so far we don't have anything else on our sheet. So I can easily show you how this fits. We start in this corner, and we want to find a 1-2 with a 2 space and a 1-2. So we're going to color in this space and this space. Again, if you're not using color, that's fine. You can use a regular pencil and just draw the shape. So in this case, you'd be drawing this sort of goblin-looking head in each of these 4 spaces. I'm just using color because it's easier to see. Although the texture here on my surface is kind of making it hard to color nicely. So there we've got our ambush colored in. So then we're going to discard the ambush from the game. We're going to turn over another card. Now I mentioned before that there's a timer in each round and I haven't really explained that yet, so I will do that now. You can see here on our card for the spring, the number 8. When we reach a total number that's equal to or greater than this number, after turning over a card, that will be the last card turned over in that round. And after that card has been dealt with, scoring will begin and we'll move on to the next round. So again, in this case, we're looking for 8. Also remember that this is the spring, means we are scoring card A and card B. Just as a reminder, card A says we're looking to build large village blocks that don't touch mountains, scoring 1 point per square in that block. And card B says we want farms on temples and we want water next to temples. We'll score 1 point for every water that's next to temples, and we'll score 3 points for every farm that's on top of the temple. So those are the 2 goals we're looking at for the first round. But I've just turned over a forest card, so we should probably pay attention to this. So let me remind you. In this case, we're trying to connect mountain to mountain using forest, and we will score for every mountain 3 points that's connected to another mountain by forest squares. So now I have a choice. I can draw a forest 2 catty corner squares and get a coin, or I can draw this 4 shape and get no coin. It's early in the game and I'm not really looking that much at chains, so I'm going to draw the catty corner shape. And let's see where we're going. Remembering here that I want to make holes in my map. So I'm going to start down here in this bottom corner, and I'm going to fill in this square and this square. Because now I've completed my first hole. So when we get to that scoring condition about holes, I will have already scored once. We do want to remember though that these empty spaces next to the monsters are going to score -1 point if I don't fill them in. So I need to pay attention to those as well while we're moving on. One thing I did just forget, because I used the small shape, I get to color in one of my coins. And I could start looking at these skills cards to use my coin if I want to. Remembering also that we have that search card that we can use for free to add 1 square to any shape that we draw. So So I'll turn over another card. Well, this time we get a temple, so now I can show you how the temples work. We've got a temple with farmland. I like this card because I want temples to be covered with farmland for my scoring, so this is really good. Now, that said, I've got two options again. I can draw a small shape of 2 squares, or I can draw a large shape with 4 squares. In this case, I think I'm going to go for the small one again because we want water next to temples. And if I use this large shape, I'm going to block all of the surrounding spaces on a temple. Again, we also want these empty spaces, and I see here is a good shot for an empty space if I fill in these 2 spaces. So there's a farm on a temple. There's my 2 squares. And now I will fill in 1 more coin for using the small shape. And we are at 1, 2 so far, remembering that we need 8 before the end of the round. Here's another 1. We've got a great river. Now, we want rivers to be next to temples. So I think I'm going to use the bigger shape this time and try to find a way that it'll fit around a temple. And I think I will do this. So we're only at 3 so far, we keep drawing. Now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we're still going, but now we can draw either a village or the water, and we need to draw a straight line of 4. I want to start building a village that is away from mountains and big. I'd like to avoid being next to temples so we can still use our water spaces there, so I'm going to put 4 red. Yeah, I don't know what else is coming up. So I'm going to actually put the 4 red here so I can at least get rid of one of my negative points from my monster space. Alright, and what I just saw here is I'm thinking of something right now. I have the ability to use a coin. I'm actually going to use this Cure Wounds skill. So I'm going to cross off one of my coins, and I can add an available terrain type in a shape of 2 by 1. If I add this shape of 2 by 1 with water right here, that puts a water space that's right next to my temple. And it's also eliminating 2 of my negative spots. So that's a really good placement for me right now. Alright, so we draw another card. Another 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're still going. And this time we're adding to our red. I like having coins. I'm going to go with the small shape, and I want to extend that red town that I already have. So I'm going to add it here like this. And I will score another coin. We turn over another card. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the last card of the round. This time I get to add either forest or farms in a shape, this 3 by 3 with 1 sticking off L shape. I'm looking to score A and B. So I wouldn't mind, if I can get through another temple somehow. Let's see. How can I get through a temple and potentially get closer to filling in a single spot? Well, this temple is kind of blocking itself off already, and I've already got one side of this mountain, so I wouldn't mind filling in more. So I'm going to draw a farm in here. I do need to start paying attention to that green score though. I haven't built any of my mountain chains yet, but I am scoring on those farms this turn, so I'm going to do that anyway, and we'll see how that plays out later in the game. Alright, so now that we're at the end of the round, we're going to do a scoring. Again, we're scoring A and B. A says I score 1 point for each village square in my largest village that's not touching a mountain. Well, this village is not touching a mountain, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. So I'm going to write down here in section A 7 points. Then we're going to score for B. B again is 1 point for water next to a temple, or 3 points for a farm on a temple. I have 2 temples that are covered with farms, so that's 6 points. Here's a water next to it is 7. Another water and another water, so hold on. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 points for that one. So I'm going to write a 9 here in the section for B. Coins, I used 1, so I don't have that coin anymore. I have 2 more, so I will put a 2 here. And we check the monster spaces. I did very good about filling in these, but I still have 2 spots here that are empty next to the monster, so I get a -2. So that 2 and -2 cancel out. 7 and 9 gets me 16 points for the spring round. So now we take all of these cards. We add in 1 more ambush card. And we shuffle. Again, now that we're starting a new round, we can use a skill card again if we need to. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. We'll give it 1 more little shuffle. And now we're not talking about spring anymore, we're moving on to summer. Summer is also a time of 8. But this time we're scoring B and C, which means the B that we just scored. And C now, C gives me 1 point for every empty hole that I have on my board. So far I only have this one in the corner, so I really need to start focusing on that if I'm going to get any points from that scoring. So let's turn over our first card and see what we've got. Homestead. I've got either village or farm. And this is where things get a little bit tricky, because I do want farms on my temples. So I could do that. But I also do eventually want to expand on that red area. But that's okay. I want to look here. I think I'm going to draw this T-shape right here. Because now I've got a temple. And by doing that, I also now have 1 more empty space there. We turn over another card. Oh, this is a temple. Ah, but it's a symbol of anything. That makes things really easy. I'm just going to fill in a temple with a single farm to score for that temple. I like this one down here. We're still only at 2 for time. Turning over another card is our next ambush. This next ambush is sort of a C-shaped. We're starting in the top left and we're going counterclockwise. So I want to start up here, and sure enough it fits perfectly right there in the corner, which is a little bit sad because it's also covering one of my temples. Which means I'm down to 1 more temple and we still have 2 rounds to go. So there's a chance that I'm going to run out of temples to cover, in which case I'm going to have to resort to those single squares, but we'll see what happens later as we play. Drawing another card. We've got a 2. This is either green or red. Now again, I do want to extend that red, but I do also need to start working on connecting mountains. And I see a really great spot to put this. If I put the green right in here, alright, there's my 3 across and my 2 across above that. That's going to work to give me 1 more empty space, which is a little bit sad because I'm not going to get that coin. but it does score me points. And now I've connected these two mountains, so I will get points for both of those mountains. And we're at 4 for time, so we continue on to the next card. Now I've got 2, either red or blue, and I want it to be in a straight line. Well, let's see what I can do with the red. It's got to be 4 in a straight line. Alright, so I've got red or blue, and it's got to be 4 in a straight line. So let's see what I can do. I could put something down here to get another single spot, but I don't really want that to happen. I would like to score on these red. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and add it to my red area. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll see how that works out. Again, it's not going to be very helpful right now, but it will score me a lot more points when we come back to A. And we're at 6 for time, so we keep going. Alright, here's our 7, 8. This is the last card of the round. We need forest or water. Again, I'm not scoring forest yet, but I am scoring water. And I want to be next to a temple. So why don't we do this? Don't really want to block off my mountains from green. So I'm going to go... Yeah, that's fine. I'll put water. No. Yes. I'm going to put water here. Like this. Because by doing that, I now have 2 more spaces next to a temple that are covered with water. Alright, so end of the round, we do scoring again. B and C. So again, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 temples that are covered with farms. So 4 times 3 is 12. And then water, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 12 and 5 is 17 points for my B scoring condition. C, we're looking for open holes. I see 1, 2, 3 open holes. So I'm only scoring 3 points for my C scoring condition. I still have 2 coins. And I realize I just made a mistake. I should have used those 2 coins to fill something in over here or over here to block some of the monsters off, but I didn't, and I'm not going to change because that's not fair to go back. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 negative, which is not great. 17 minus 7 is 10, plus 3 and 2 is 15 for summer. So again, we flip over the summer card. Now we're in the fall. I'm going to take these cards back together, add in another ambush card, and shuffle them up. And we'll begin the fall. Now in the fall, we're scoring C and D. That's the cauldrons, meaning the empty spaces on my board, and the Stoneside Forest, which means I need to connect mountains with forests. In addition, the fall is a little bit shorter. We only play a time of 7. So we start with our first card, Riftlands, 1 of anything, anywhere. Well, I'm looking to make holes, and I'm looking to connect mountains. So, this is a tricky one. Let's do... We're never going to score blue and yellow again, so I don't care about them. So this is either going to be a village or a forest, so I'm going to say forest, and let's make sure it touches a mountain. Let's go up here. I would go to the bottom one, but I've already got these 2 connected, so even if I connect to here, I only score for 1 more. If I can connect these 2 together, I'll get 2 more mountains, and that would be a very nice thing to do. Temple ruins. We have to draw a river that goes on a temple. Alright. Well. That's not great. I could draw the big one and score for both of these two places, but I don't want to draw a huge shape here and block off what's happening with this green. Wait a minute. Actually, that's perfect. If I do this, I just picked up 2 more empty spaces and I scored twice. It's not gonna matter, I just realized that. Anyway, it doesn't hurt me, but I'm not scoring for water and temples anymore, so that didn't really matter. But I do pick up 2 empty spaces, so it doesn't hurt in the end. Let me make sure I can tell that this green is green. There we go. Alright, next card. Another temple. Now I'm in trouble. Okay. So we have an ambush that comes after a temple. So what we're going to do is we're going to resolve this ambush, and then we'll come back to the temple on our next turn. I'm starting in the bottom right corner this time, if you can see. And we're going counterclockwise with a shape like this. So now we can see a little bit more what I need to do. If I start here, I'm looking for that shape. I can't fit it here anywhere. But when I get to this spot, it's right there, fits perfectly, unfortunately. And we fill in like this. These monsters are really hurting me in this game. I'm going to take a lot of negative points if I don't start paying attention to those spaces better. But let's see what we do as we keep moving. Now, we're back to this temple. I'm going to turn this over. If you have a temple left on your board, you must put this, either this shape or this shape, on a temple. That means either a 2 diagonal or a 4 like that on your temple. I don't have any temples left. If you do not have any temples left, you can draw 1 square of any color anywhere on your board. So I wouldn't mind to still have some green. I'm going to draw some green here in the hopes that we work towards connecting some mountains together. We're only at 2 time-wise, so we still have plenty of time to catch up if we need to. Alright, next we got an orchard. Either green or yellow in this sort of L shape. I want green. I really want green. So let's see what we can do here. Alright, I'm going to connect these 2 mountains together and create another empty spot, which is great for me. So now I've got another pocket in here, and this mountain is connected to this mountain. Yay. We're at 4 on time. 5, farmland. We need to draw a cross, or we can draw these 2 with a coin. I am going to say, I will draw the 2 with a coin, and I will place it down here like this. In fact, I'm going to use my skill. I'm going to use the search for free, which allows me to add 1 square to my shape. And I'm also scoring a coin because I used the smaller shape. I'm just double checking I don't have any mountains surrounded yet. I often miss that. I do not. Okay, so we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next card is 7. This is our last card for this round. Again, red or farm. I need to find a way to extend my red without touching mountains. So let us do this. Great. All right, so that's the end of the fall round. So we go back into scoring. See, I'm looking for holes. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points for that. D, I'm looking for connected mountains, and I've got 1, 2, 3 of those. So 3 times 3 is 9 points. I've got 3 coins, and the monsters are going to kill me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that just eliminated all my forest points. 8 plus 3 is 11 points for the fall round. So we move into our last round, which is winter. Winter is much shorter. It's only 6 on time. Again, we add one more, our last ambush card, into the deck, and we shuffle. And I turn over our first card as a 2. We're in a fishing village. We've got village or water. Again, this round we're scoring D and A. So I would love to extend my red if I can do so without touching a mountain. In this case, I cannot. I could put it here, but then I would touch the mountain and it would be worth 0 points. So I don't want to do that. So basically, I'm just going to throw water somewhere that it doesn't hurt me. And I think that might be down here, because it's not really in the way of anything. I suppose I could have put it over here and gotten a coin, but I've made my choice, so I will stick with it. Next card is another 2. We've got tree or house in this sort of S kind of shape. That one could be helpful if I can figure out how to fit it. Yes. No. 1, 2, no. Yes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's no way that I'm going to fit it perfectly so that it touches, as far as I can tell. But I'll put it here, which will eliminate at least one of my monster spaces. And oh, I did it. Okay, I wasn't paying enough attention, I guess. There's my connection, green to green. Good. So it fit. We eliminated a monster space and we connected to our last mountain. Oh, that was a very quick round. There's another 2. We got a farm or a water, which isn't going to help me at all in this case, unless I can finish a mountain, which I can't with a piece that big. So just to extend the farm that I've already got at the end of the game, I will do this. And then we do our final scoring. So we're going to start with D, and I will look at connected mountains. This time I've got 4 connected, so I get 12 points. Then I'm looking at A, my greatest city, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 points. Very nice. Coins, I still have 3. I just realized I didn't use any of those skills, which could have helped. And I get a negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which means 27 minus 7 is 20, plus 3 is 23. Alright, now that we're done with the scoring of the 4th round, we can go ahead and do the final scoring. The first step is simply just to add everything together. So we start with 16, plus 15 is 31, plus 11 is 42. Then finally, plus 23 is 65. So we would have a total of 65 points. And in the case of a multiplayer game, 65 would be your total. You would compare scores with the other players, and whoever has the highest score is the winner. If there was a tie in a multiplayer game, you would add up all of the negative points, and whoever had the fewest negative points would win the tie. However, in the solo game, there's another twist. You'll notice at the bottom of every scoring card, there's a star. And in this star, it shows a score total. So this one says 18. So if we take a look at all of our cards, I see a 16 plus 20 plus 20 plus 18. In this version of the game, meaning the solo version of the game, we're going to take that number and subtract it at the end. So I just got 74 points by adding up to 16, 20, 20, and 18. So we're going to subtract that total. So again, 16 plus 15 plus 11 plus 23 for my scores is 65 minus 74 gives me a total score in a solo game of -9 points, which unfortunately is not very good. So what you're going to do with that score is, if you look on the back of the rulebook on the solo rules, you can see a list of points here. With my -9, I did better than this -10, so I would say I'm in this -5 range, which means I've earned the title Amateur Assessor. If you played along with me, list your points below and your title and compare to see how well you did versus my score. I'd imagine with my score of -9, you've probably done quite a bit better. Now, while I'm down here, I just want to talk a little bit about the components. The majority of this game is the score sheets and the cards. This score sheet is very nicely designed. I really like this sort of layout with the banner and the shield and the swords. It's very easy to fill in the grid. It's very clear. The coin system at the bottom works very nicely. The scoring system has its own little scoring sheet right here at the bottom of your paper, which is great. And they're two-sided, so you can use each sheet twice, and the backside gives you a little bit different challenge, so that makes things really nice. In addition, the box comes with a ton of these score sheets, so really, this game is going to last you quite a while if you use these score sheets as is. That said, for games of this kind, I generally tend to do this. I take my score sheets and I laminate them. And when you have a laminated score sheet, I can use a dry erase marker to write on that score sheet and then wipe it off at the end of the game so that I can use the sheets over and over and over again. The nice thing about this game, and I'll mention this again probably in my review later, is that basically any number of people can play this game. So if you play this game with lots of people, your pad's going to go away very quickly. But if you play with few people, it'll last longer. If you have laminated sheets, it doesn't really matter. You can play as many times as you want to, and you'll never have to worry about running out of sheets. Now, we'll take a look at the cards. If you've played any of the role-player games before, you'll notice that the artwork is really nice. All of these cards have beautiful illustrations on them. They're all very different illustrations. They theme to match whatever it is the land type is on that card. The skill cards remind me quite a bit of some of the cards from Role Player, with sort of characters and scenes that are happening. Very nice art. Very clear, very easy to see what's going on. All of these letters, all of the symbols are very clear and very easy to see. If there's anything I'm going to complain about at all, it's the writing on some of these cards. It's really small, and I don't really have a problem reading it too much, but I could imagine that if your sight was a little bit less than great, it could be a little bit tough to read some of that stuff. One good thing, however, though, is in the back of the rulebook, each of those cards is explained in slightly easier to read text. It's still pretty small, but it's definitely clearer than on the card. So if you have a problem reading the card, definitely check out the rulebook because it makes it a little bit clearer and easier to read. Otherwise, the symbols on the cards show off everything really well, and it shouldn't be difficult at all to understand what the cards are saying. Aside from that, there are no other components in the game, so let's go back up top and I'll tell you what I think about the game. Alright, I hope you enjoyed my playthrough of that game. I'm just going to come out right up front and say it. This is my favorite roll and write, flip and write, whatever end right game that I've played so far, and likely to be so for quite a while. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the genre. I play lots of Ganchon Clever. I really enjoy Welcome To. There's a whole slew of these games that I really enjoy. But this game is really thematic. I mean, in this game I'm playing a cartographer, and what am I doing? I'm drawing maps. It really works for the theme. It's not just, here's a number, put it on your sheet. Here's a color, put it on your sheet. It makes sense. I'm building a map. Things go in certain places, yes, because of the scoring goals, but when I'm done, I've created a map of a kingdom that exists only in my mind, but now on a piece of paper in front of me.
Granted, it's not 100% real because I'm creating the map, I'm not drawing a map of an actual place, but it is a game. We do need to have some scoring, goal condition kind of things. So while I'm talking about that, let's talk about those goal conditions. I really like the scoring in this game for a bunch of different reasons. There are 4 unique types of scoring conditions. It means every game I'm going to have 4 different things that I'm aiming for, and they're going to be separate because, we've got the one that's based on water and farms, we've got the one that's based on villages, we've got the one that's based on forests, and we've got the one that's based on shapes and placement. And they're never going to interact in bad ways. I'm never going to miss out on something because I'm doing something else. Yes, of course, we'll score more one thing than score more of other things. But I'm never in a position where I can't place something to aim for at least one of those 4 goals. And that's really, really convenient. In addition, there are 4 of each of those goals types. And then there's 4 different types. So the combination and the mix, and even with different orders of the same cards, there's a huge number of combinations of goal scoring in this game. And you're never ever gonna, almost never ever going to come across a game that scores exactly like a game you've played before. And even if you did, you could shuffle it and almost definitely be guaranteed to come up with a new set of goal scoring. In addition to that, I really love the way that there's 4 rounds in the game, and each round is scoring 2 goal scoring, and then the next one moves down by 1. So you're always scoring one of the things from the last round plus 1 new. And then at the end, you're rescoring the first one. So that first goal that you're aiming for, you're likely to have a fairly low number because it's very early in the game. But then you come back to that goal at the end of the game, which means now you've had the entire game to aim for that goal, and likely it's going to balance out that very low number with a much higher number at the end of the game. On top of all of this, there's also the ambush cards, which score negative points, which is really, really, really cool to me because it adds some other challenge to this game other than just take what you're given and do something with it. Especially in the multiplayer game, which we didn't see here, but it adds player interaction to a roll and write or flip and write game that you don't normally see in most of games in this genre. Most of these games are very much multiplayer solitaire, and this game can play as many players as you have sheets for, assuming that the players can all see the cards on the table. But there's no problem there. I can pass to the next person in either direction. I only need to be next to 2 people. It doesn't matter if there's 20 people in the room because they're passing to different people. But even with that many people in the room, we're adding player interaction by using those ambush cards, but we're not adding any time to the game, right? Because everything is happening at the same time. It's a really cool way to throw in some player interaction in a game like this. I know I've said that word player interaction a lot, but yes, it's great. In the solo game, it's equally cool because you can kind of think about where these things are going to go, right? You know it starts in one of the 4 corners, and you know it's going to go around the edge of the board in one way or the other. So if you really wanted to think about building a sort of network from the outside in, and sort of making it hard for those to get placed, you may be able to block 1 or 2 of them by the end of the game. I haven't really aimed that far forward strategically, but it's something to consider. Beyond that, let me talk about the coins. Sorry, I forgot about the coins. The coins are really cool too because it gives me the ability to take something that doesn't help me as much in order to get something that's going to help me slowly throughout the rest of the game. And now, in this playthrough I showed you, the skills expansion, that throws another whole new thing to connect to these coins, right? Now I've got an option. I can either save those coins for 1 point every round, which could end up winning me the game, or I can use those coins to trigger a once per round special skill that's going to help me manipulate things and change things and make my map even better with even more potential to score points. But not necessarily. So you really have to weigh whether or not it's better to keep those coins or use those coins. Now we talk about the regular cards. That's the other cool thing about this game. Most games in this genre, you roll dice or you flip a card, and whatever it says, you use. Now, you can choose the order in which you use those things or where you place them on your sheet. But this game also gives you extra options, right? When I flip over that card, I've either got the choice of 2 colors or 2 shapes. And with those 2 shapes, one of them is going to give me a coin. It's smaller, but it gives me a coin. And with the 2 colors, I have to think about, I've got multiple goals. I can focus on either of those for different goals. Which one do I want to focus on now, and which one is it okay to push off till later? This sort of thought space of all of the different options that I'm given is really, really interesting, and I really like the way this works. Plus, I didn't talk about it at all yet, but there's the temple cards too, right? With those temple cards, I have to be careful that I'm not placing on temples in case I get those later. Because if I already have all of my temples covered, I get 1 square, and 1 square is not going to help me score a whole lot. But on the other hand, as we had in the game that I just showed you, one of my scoring conditions was to place things on temples, and that was early in one of the early rounds of the game. So if I wanted to score, I had to cover the temples, which means that later in the game I didn't have any of those temples left, and that sort of screwed things up a little bit for me. My score wasn't great. I may not have made the right choice, right? I may have wanted to leave 1 or 2 of those empty so that I could use them later in the game. Anyway, I think that's about all I've got for this game. I don't really have any negatives per se to say about this game. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the skills expansion. If you can grab one, I'd say grab it. There's also another ambush mini expansion that adds a couple more ambush cards to the game. I haven't picked it up yet, but I don't see any reason why I won't. It just adds more variability to the game, which is always a good thing. And more importantly, coming up very, very soon, they've got another version of this game coming out. I believe it's called Cartographers Heroes. And it seems to be a standalone game that's also an expansion for this game, and I cannot wait to find out more. I really, really like this game, and I recommend you check it out if you do too. Talk to you soon.